Hello, Justin. I have a few matters to discuss with you.
What a surprising turn of events. Please, go ahead. Also, I want to express my gratitude for inviting me over the other day.
First and foremost, let me clarify. I am not your father.
What do you mean?
Don't pretend to be affectionate and refer to me as father. I don't recall having a son who dropped out of high school.
But, when we last met,
I concealed my emotions because my wife and Martha were present. I didn't want to create a scene, so I refrained from saying anything. I understand.
however, you still support our marriage, don't you?
Stop it! You're jumping to conclusions. I heard that you and Martha were classmates in high school before you dropped out.
Yes, that's correct.
What did you do after leaving school? I heard you spent your days at home.
Well, it's a bit complicated to explain.
I heard you were idle.
Well, that's one way to perceive it.
So, you're a failure.
No, that's not who I am.
Then, what were you doing?
I utilized the time to learn about computers and the internet in detail.
So, what you're saying is, you became a nerd.
I suppose I can't change your opinion of me. However, there are various types of nerds.
All I know is, while people your age were studying and searching for employment, you took advantage of your parents' generosity and lived an unproductive life.
Unproductive life? It wasn't that significant. Besides, I was able to apply that experience to my current job.
Working for a company that hires loser nerds? There aren't any philanthropic, overly righteous companies like that. Especially in the US.
Father, am I safe to assume that you dislike me? I don't mean to be impolite, but you're evading the topic. And I'm not sure where this conversation is headed.
Don't make me repeat myself. Don't call me father. This is why I find it difficult to converse with high school dropouts. They make me reiterate the same things over and over again. You remind me of the high school dropouts at my company.
Mr. Matthew, I believe you hold a biased view of high school dropouts.
How dare you make assumptions about me? You haven't even graduated from high school.
Nowadays, educational credentials aren't as crucial as they used to be.
Only someone lacking education would say that.
I understand. Can we agree that you do not approve of my marriage to Martha?
I dislike you even mentioning my beloved daughter's name. You high school dropout loser.
The educational aspect, the loser aspect. It's become more than a simple misunderstanding. Can you judge me based on my current job and salary?
Your salary? I highly doubt a high school dropout salary is worth boasting about.
Is that so? I don't mind showing you my pay stubs to put your mind at ease.
Your pay stubs? They can be fabricated.
I believe you've gone too far. I am not the type of person who would engage in such actions.
Regardless, I wouldn't trust anything coming from a supposedly charitable company that hires loser nerds. No matter how hard you try, I will never allow you to marry my daughter.
How can you make such hurtful remarks about a company you know nothing about?
I can easily gather information about your company by speaking with some of the other employees. But I'm certain it's a place that attracts high school dropout losers.
You're mistaken. My company is well known and listed on the New York Stock Exchange. You can't begin to comprehend how remarkable it is.
The philanthropic company that offers handouts?
Listen. I don't know how to convince you to believe me.
Even if you worked for a Fortune 500 company, earning a six-figure salary, I would still reject this marriage.
Why?
Marriage means children, right? The child would inherit your genes.
Yes, that's correct. What's the issue?
You're expecting me to accept a grandchild with the genes of a high school dropout?
There's no point in continuing this conversation. I now realize that we'll never see eye to eye.
Good boy. You finally understand my concerns. Promise me you'll end your relationship with my daughter and never see her again.
I can't make that promise. However, Martha and I will have a lengthy, serious discussion.
Even as a high school dropout, you should understand how delicate people's emotions are. End the relationship to spare Martha any further pain. Hey, what's happening? Martha hasn't been home for days.
Why don't you talk to Martha directly?
I did. She's ignoring all my calls and messages. I believe you're responsible for this.
Yes, but even if I explained it to you, you wouldn't believe me.
You deceiver. You convinced my daughter to leave home.
I didn't deceive her. I simply told her the truth.
I know what you're thinking. You want Martha because her college education landed her a high-paying job. You want her money.
Do you realize what you're saying?
Remember how I convinced you to break up with her? But then you remembered her salary and persuaded her to come back.
I never said I would break up with her, not even once.
I told you to break up with Martha to spare her more pain.
And I replied that we needed to have a long, serious discussion. Not a breakup conversation.
Don't act so superior, you high school dropout. You're so obnoxious.
Martha felt sick when she found out what a bigot you are.
I never told Martha anything. She didn't hear it from me.
But when you contacted me, Martha happened to be with me. And she saw the messages while sitting next to me.
I can't believe. You're the kind of person who shows private WhatsApp chats to others.
Normally, I wouldn't show my chats to anyone. But you're Martha's father.
Don't you have any decency towards your fellow human being?
Hold on a second. I never expected the chat to become such a smear campaign. Sorry, Mr. Matthew, but it's all your fault.
Smear campaign? What are you talking about? This is why I despise your generation. I only spoke the truth.
Whether it's the truth or not. Martha started crying in the middle of our chat.
You made her cry.
No, I'm not to blame. I don't feel comfortable getting married while we're constantly clashing. So, I tried to convince her to go home.
So, Martha is coming home?
No, she's stubborn about not returning.
But what about her clothes, her things?
Don't worry, we've bought her new things.
How dare you waste Martha's hard-earned money? You're not only a loser and a nerd, but also a freeloader? You scoundrel!
Mr. Matthew, are you paying attention? We bought Martha's things, not mine.
It's your fault she ran away from home. It's your responsibility as a man to pay for her things.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm sure you won't be able to support her for long on your high school dropout salary. That's why you're making Martha pay for her own things. I'm embarrassed for you.
I wonder who should be embarrassed of whom. I couldn't care less about what you think of me anymore.
You're aware that Martha has had a life without financial burdens thanks to me. I'm sure she'll quickly realize how challenging life with you is. Anyway, tell Martha to come home soon. Do we understand each?
Why don't you wait patiently for her to return? After all, she's an adult.
You really annoy me. I'm sure she'll deplete all her savings living with you, a high school dropout. Just because I went a bit overboard with my objections. I know it'll end soon, so I've decided to wait it out.
Thank you for your understanding. Have a pleasant day.
I can't believe how audacious you are.
It's been a while since we last spoke.
What's with this long time, no speak nonsense? That's enough. Bring Martha home immediately.
Unfortunately, due to her health, it's not safe for her to travel by plane.
What? Her health? Flying? What are you talking about?
I apologize. I assumed Mother had informed you.
She hasn't told me anything. What do you mean, flying? Have you been transferred to some remote, terribly inconvenient location? I'm certain it's because of a mistake you made or something.
You haven't changed a bit. We're currently residing in Zurich, Switzerland. And, on top of that, Martha is pregnant.
Pregnant? You scoundrel, what have you done? How dare you?
I've been keeping Mother informed about our lives here. She knows what's happening. You're fortunate to have such a wonderful wife.
Who do you think you are? I haven't heard anything.
Really? But that's between you and your wife. I don't want to get involved.
What are you both doing in Switzerland? Bring Martha back to the States immediately.
That's impossible. I'm here for work. It's one of the safest countries in the world.
Maybe it's safe in the city. I'm sure if you go to the outskirts, there are hoodlums and gang members.
If you're so worried, why don't you come here and see for yourself?
Why do I have to go abroad? You two should return here now.
But Mother has visited a few times.
What? She has?
Yes. When Martha first found out she was pregnant, Mother flew out to help us.
How did she afford it? Is she hiding money from me?
Don't worry, I covered her travel expenses, etc.
What a ridiculous lie.
You're impossible. Isn't it about time you found out what I do for a living?
I'm not interested in hearing about the job of a high school dropout.
But for you to assume I have a terrible job because of my education. I have my pride, you know.
It's not an assumption, it's the truth.
Fine, I give up. I work as a trader for an investment bank. I won't mention the company to avoid shocking you.
How foolish do you think I am?
I dropped out of high school and studied independently from home.
That's what all you losers say.
No, really. Initially, I didn't earn much, but over time, I gained understanding of global markets and moved abroad.
That sounds suspicious.
You can think whatever you want. but the truth is I relocated here when I was younger to gain knowledge about the European market.
Switzerland, you say?
I started as an assistant in my current company here.
What nonsense! I'm certain it's all lies.
If you're this skeptical, there's no way you'll ever believe me. European schools are different, and not completing high school didn't hinder me.
What's the name of the company?
It's Silverman Sachs.
You must be joking. Even an old man like me can see right through it.
You still won't believe me.
Talk is cheap. I'll use my connections to find out the truth about you.
Will you? Thank you. And if you still can't accept me, I'll give up as well.
Be quiet. Return my daughter immediately.
That's another complex discussion, so I'll get back to you. Have a nice day.
Justin, I have something important I need to ask you. Missed call.
Mr. Matthew, what can I do for you?
No, please address me as father. Now that I know what your job is, I believe you.
I'm glad you finally believe me.
I acknowledge that we've had misunderstandings in the past. However, I must admit that you are a suitable partner for my daughter.
Misunderstandings? It's disheartening to see how you've downplayed our issues.
Can you please refrain from the attitude? As I mentioned earlier, there's something I want to ask you.
What is it?
My wife hasn't been home for the past few days. Is it possible that she is with you and Martha?
Yes, she's with us. She informed us that you two have decided to get divorced.
Divorced? No decision has been made yet. I am against it.
But regardless of your opinion, Mr. Matthew, the final decision will be made by the court.
Court? What are you talking about?
You were quite confrontational about my education. But it was surprising to discover that you've always been confrontational toward your family.
What do you mean by confrontational?
You've been unkind to Mother, haven't you?
What does that have to do with getting a divorce? I married her right after she graduated from junior college, so she could be a housewife and stay-at-home mother. What's wrong with that? Being a little confrontational at times is not a big deal.
No, being confrontational is a problem. The fact that you fail to recognize it reflects poorly on you.
Hold on. Does this mean that both my wife and daughter will be living with you from now on?
Yes, that's the plan. Martha will be with me until death do us part. And Mr. Matthew, you are more than welcome to join us if you wish.
Me? How dare you?
But what about our misunderstandings? If you're willing to travel here, I will make time for us to sort everything out.
That's not going to happen. You know I'm a proud man.
Too bad.
Can you do me a favor and just come back to the States?
That's impossible. Besides, Martha's due date is approaching soon. It wouldn't be wise for us to travel right now.
Don't say that. Be a friend. I want to see my grandchild too. I want to spend time with everyone in the States.
In that case, why don't you have enough love for your wife and daughter to board a plane and come here? Is it because you are so prideful?
It's not about that. I'm afraid.
Afraid? Afraid of what?
I'm scared to leave the U.S. You never know what might happen in a country where people don't speak English.
Mr. Matthew, you graduated from university. How can you be scared of leaving the US? I went to Switzerland when I was 18. Me, a high school dropout.
What does education have to do with it?
Is that so? But don't you judge a person based on their education? I assumed that because you have a university degree, you would know more than me, including how to overcome fear.
They don't teach you that in university. So, let's find a compromise. Why don't we meet halfway?
What do you mean by halfway?
There's a direct flight from Zurich to New York, right? And there's a direct flight from here to JFK as well. So, why don't we meet in New York?
The middle? That's still in the US. Regardless, it's impossible for us.
Come on. Even suggesting this is me stepping out of my comfort zone. I will apologize to my wife and daughter, and of course, to you.
No, thank you. I just heard from Martha and Mother. Even if you came to Zurich, they never want to see your face again. They don't want to talk to you at all, so please communicate with them through your lawyer.
Wait! You do realize that I'm the one offering to step out of my comfort zone. We just need to take a single flight.
The birth of our child takes precedence. That won't change. I also want to protect Mother. Mr. Matthew, please enjoy your life. Though there's no one left for you to be confrontational toward.
You know you are committing a crime.
That's rich, me committing a crime. Then let's start with your trial. There's no way I will ever be convicted. Mr. Matthew maintained his conviction of being afraid to leave the United States. As a result, he didn't come to visit us. Meanwhile, I pursued my career, transitioning from one financial hub to another. I never had the chance to see Mr. Matthew again. Despite our attempts at divorce, Mr. Matthew adamantly refused and created a significant disturbance. Consequently, Mother eventually agreed to relinquish any alimony in exchange for the divorce. It took 3 years, but we eventually finalized the divorce. Ultimately, Mr. Matthew lost his family, leading both Martha and Mother to hold contempt for him. Even in his workplace, his antagonistic attitude earned him no favors, and everyone grew tired of him. You know that solitary man on the subway, who sits alone and gazes out the window while muttering to himself? That's exactly what Mr. Matthew has become now.